Hi, so this Can I Fix It video is going to be a little bit different from the other ones that I've done and I plan to do, which are about car-related problems. This is going to be a computer-related problem, this computer right here. Now, if you just want to skip on to the part where I actually do the work, I'm going to put a chapter marker in there so you can just do that right now if you want. Otherwise, I thought I'd explain why I'm doing this repair and a little bit about what it is. This PC is a Corsair One i164 gaming PC, but I don't use it for gaming. I use it for my work, which is architecture. And we use this program called ArchiCAD. You can see an example of it right back here. It creates everything as a 3D model. We basically model the house, and then we create two-dimensional blueprints or architectural drawings from that. And we also use that model to create either images, renderings that are 2D images, or 3D walkthroughs with software called Twinmotion. And that's all pretty graphics intensive, and this computer has been really good for doing that work, but not recently, because it started crashing maybe 3 or 4 months ago. First I got a few crashes, then more and more, until finally it was unusable and I realized there was a problem with the computer. I did look through the diagnostics. Corsair has a little inbuilt diagnostics program, and then there's Windows Event Viewer, and I tried to go through those even though I don't really know what I'm doing and see if there was some clue. Was there a consistent program that was crashing? And there wasn't. There were a few different programs that showed up as crashing, and I deleted them. I didn't need them, didn't use them, and it still kept happening over and over again. So that didn't really help me, and finally I brought it to a computer person, and I thought they will fix it. They will figure this out. So I brought it to them, they plugged it in, they turned it on, they left it on overnight, it didn't crash once. It was completely useless and expensive. So I brought it home and wondered what to do. And then my girlfriend had a brilliant idea to call Corsair and ask them if they had any ideas. So I did. I talked to them, I explained what had been happening, I explained the crashes, and one thing stood out to them, which was that in some of the crashes that I had, the system would reboot to the BIOS, but would not continue on into Windows. And if I selected exit and don't save from the BIOS screen, it would just reboot into BIOS and not continue on into Windows. So that suggested to them that the problem would be the boot drive on this computer, which in this case is a little tiny stick SSD drive. It's actually something like this, which is my replacement. This is a Samsung SSD 980 Pro PCIe 4.0 NVMe M.2 SSD. I don't know what any of that means. Nothing. Well, I do know that an SSD is a solid state drive, which is different from the old spinning disks that we still have around, but it's faster and more stable and should be more reliable, even though it may not be in my case. And the M.2 is something that I'd never heard of before, but it's the form factor of this SSD, which is like a little stick, and we'll see it when I open this up. So that's the job today, to go ahead and open this thing up, pull out the old SSD, and replace it with this new one that I have. Now, I think in a lot of desktop computers that wouldn't be a huge deal, but this compact form factor PC here, everything's packed in really tightly. And in this case, the SSD is behind the graphics card, which is also kind of behind a radiator and some hoses. So it's a little trickier to get to. And when I looked around YouTube, I couldn't find any videos that actually showed the replacement of the drive. There are some out there that show this being opened up. There are some that show the video cards being replaced. There was one in which the YouTuber had replaced the drive but didn't show it on camera. So I thought I'd go ahead and just see what happens when I try to tackle it. Here we go. We'll find out if I can fix this. Okay, so the first step is removing this top cooling fin vent piece from the top of the computer. And to do that, you go to the back of it, and there is this little button right here, and you push that in, and it's harder than you'd think it'd be, so just push until it kind of pops up a bit. Just lift that up, and then there is this cord, power cord, that goes from the fan down into the computer, and it's got a connector that has to come up through this little gap. So basically you just have to twist it so it comes up at the right angle to fit through kind of diagonally. There we go. And this connector, let's see, it's got a little tab on it, and I've seen people in the other videos just pull this apart, but that hasn't worked for me. So I'm just going to use a little flathead screwdriver to pull that up a bit like that, and right there. Easy. The next step is to remove one of these two side panels from the enclosure here. It's the side that we have to remove is the GPU side, because that SSD is behind the graphics card. The other side, which is this right hand side, as you face the back, has the CPU and the second sort of conventional hard drive behind it. So we're going to start on the left hand side. As you face the back, there are some screws up here at the top. Just remove that. And this. Okay. Now this should lift up and slide out. Okay. There we go. The Corsair email that I got sent me a little diagram that shows what screws I need to detach, so I'm going to take a look at that. It's showing me that I need to remove 2 screws above the fan, 2 screws on either side of this connector here, and then 2 more at the base of the graphics card. As I take these out, I try to put them somewhere in the same kind of physical order, or the same physical placement that they are here, so that they go back in the right spots, since it's not always the case that the screws are the same size. Okay. Go. I'm on the last screw now, and it's a little tricky. It's behind. Oh, nope, that connector just lifts up. Okay, it looks like I need to release these 2 clips, and then over here, I'm not sure yet how that disconnects. So I'm going to start with the 2 clips. These 2 clips are held with this, or these 2 connectors are held with this clip here. So I'm trying to, again, use the flathead to lift it and then gently push back. Just the first one. It's looking pretty good. There we go. The second one, getting there. This might be a good time to note that according to the videos I've seen, the newer version of the Corsair One made the boot drive much easier to access. You just open one side of the case and it's right there. I was really excited when I saw that video on YouTube, and then I realized I didn't have that model. Okay, so it looks like I've got these almost disconnected. There we go, there we go. Those are ready to come off. We've got HDMI connectors. I assume they're HDMI connectors, yes, or DisplayPort connectors. There. And 3 more down here. Okay, well there's one. There's two. There's three. Now I've pulled the 4 HDMI cables off. One thing I see that's really tight is right here. So I'm hoping this can come up and fold back. Something is still holding it. So what I've noticed here is that this graphics card and connection looks a little different from the photo they sent me. It could be that I'm just not reading it right, but it appears that what I actually need to disconnect at this end are 2 screws on the outer side of this bracket here, rather than the 2 screws that seem to connect the circuit board of the graphics card to the bracket. So I'm going to start by putting those 2 screws back in. That's the circuit board to bracket screws, so that they don't come out in 2 pieces. If I have to, I'll take them out again. The next step is to take out these 2 outer screws on this bracket here. I've removed the 2 screws at the bottom on either side of this bracket. I removed the other screws already. There are 2 wires that come out of this thing. I don't know what it is. They go through a zip tie to 2 connectors. Unfortunately, because they go through the zip tie, I'm going to have to cut the zip tie to free all of this from the chassis so I can lift this up. And then I believe the graphics card will pull out of this connector here. And that I've undone these screws, not because this piece comes out, but just to allow it to angle up and pull out. I really don't want to undo that zip tie. I mean, it probably seems like a tiny thing for anybody that's used to this, but I don't want to make any more changes than I have to, but it looks like I've got to go ahead and do that, so here we go. I'm just going to say right now, I don't know what the proper tool for this is. This seems a little big, but it's what I have, so I'm going to be careful and see what I can do. I feel like I'm in one of those bomb diffusing videos. Look, that didn't do anything. Okay. There we go. All right. Yep, okay. So it looks like I'm right. Those get disconnected, and then this green connector slides off the graphics card. I'm just going gently one side at a time. Okay. All right, there we go. There is the graphics card and its cooling mechanisms. With that out of the way, I can see now the SSD that we need to remove for this project. And there's this whole folded connection here, and behind it is the SSD. It looks like we've got one little connector there. All right. And then there we go. Here's the new drive, and I believe this is actually supposed to be a little faster than the one I just pulled out. So if it is, that would be a nice bonus. It's going to go right in just the way the other one came out. Okay. There it is. I should mention that before I took this all apart, I did use this machine to create a Windows reinstallation USB drive. So once this goes back together, I'll be using that to put Windows back on this machine. I am told by Corsair that the Windows validation key is embedded in the firmware, the BIOS, somewhere in this computer, so when I do it, my Windows license will be activated and so on. Now all I have to do is put this screw in and put it all back together again. This is going to come down here. I'm going to get these started. Okay. Okay. I got that connector back onto the graphics card. And then I've got these two connectors, which fortunately are different sizes, so it's easy to tell what goes where. Slide them up under where that zip tie was. I've got the two large connectors here reconnected. I've got the video card slot reconnected. I have the two power connectors for this thing reconnected. The last piece is to reconnect the HDMI cables and then screw it all back together, put it back together, and turn it on. I just realized one thing I would do if I were doing this again is I would do the HDMI cables before this green, before any of the other stuff actually. I would have done them first because I can move the graphics card out a little, plug them in, and then push it back into place. Okay, there we go. One more, well, two more, one down low. Okay. There we go. That's 4 HDMI cables reattached. Now I can put the screws back in. All right, everything is reconnected. Now I can swivel this. Set it down in there. Last screw there. The last item we need to take care of to put it back together is the fan connector. There we go. Tuck that back down into that gap. And then it just drops down, snaps into place. All right. Well, that's it for the mechanical part of it. Now I'm going to go ahead and connect it up to the monitor, get my USB key. We'll see what happens. So it looks like the new installation so far of Windows is working. I did have to make some changes to the BIOS to get this to work. So I think this might have been because of some settings that I changed earlier by mistake. But the first thing I needed to do that I think many people have to do is change the boot mode from UEFI to UFEI plus legacy. And then I also moved the boot priority to be USB key first. I'm not sure if that's actually necessary. I think, it's possible that it just works its way through the, the different options until it gets to one that actually has a startup. And then there were a couple things I had to do that I think were problems with mine. I had to go into Settings, Advanced, WinOS Config. This is all in the BIOS setup settings. And I had to change the Win10 WHQL from CSM to UEFI. That was one change. And then I had to make sure that Secure Boot support was changed from disabled to enabled. Once I did that, it was able to boot and open up the Windows install file on the USB key. And now I've got it installing. So far, so good. I did run into a problem because My first flash drive was defective, and it just kept cutting out, caused a ton of problems. But once I created a new installation disk on a new USB key, well, so far so good. We'll see. Yeah, see, this part is really boring. Really, really boring. It is, you know, like 2 days later. That's why I'm wearing different clothes. Because of the USB key problem. USB key? Yeah, USB key. Flash drive? I don't know what to call them. USB drive, flash drive, USB key. I don't know. Okay, this is farther than the installation has ever gotten, so that should be good, right? Oh, look at that. Windows. I've never been that excited to see Windows. Still not really that excited about it, but it means I think it's working. Is it the right keyboard? US, yes. Do you want to add a second keyboard? No. Name my device. I've named this Corsair One i64, which is probably the most boring name for this computer, but I've always named my computers boring things, like whatever they are. I mean, I guess it's like if somebody came up to you and said they bought a new Ford and that they named their car, and you said, hey, what did you name your car? And they said, I named it Ford. That's what I do with computers. I don't know why. I think it's just because I am kind of, yeah, boring. Ugh. Emailing me a code. Not that I'm going to show any of this anyway, because, you know, privacy, blah, blah, blah. What just happened? What just friggin' happened? Okay. I want to do this as a completely new device. Get location. Find my device. Sure. Whatever. Okay. I don't really care. Let's go. Okay, it kind of freaks me out when it all goes black. It's getting things ready for me. That's nice of it. Oh my God, this is mesmerizing. Looks like it's trying to hypnotize me. You will obey Bill Gates. It's seriously kind of weird. There it is. So far it's all worked. Reinstalled Windows. Now I just need to reinstall my programs and see if it starts crashing again. I really, really hope that this has done it, and that this little guy was bad and the new one is good, and that I never have to deal with this again. So it's been a little bit of time. I've been working on the computer. I haven't had any crashes yet. The drive works. It boots up every time. So hopefully that's it, and I won't have any more problems from now on. And that means, I guess, I fixed it. All right, if you like this, you want to see some more of whatever kind of videos I managed to make, cars or computers or who knows what, click like, subscribe, whatever you'd like. I'd appreciate it. And thanks for watching.